Hello, I am the Dungeon Tutor. Welcome. Since 2016, I've been answering your questions, giving advice and inspiration to countless gamers. Here, you can ask questions in the comments and get your own videos as an answer. So I encourage you, enjoy by all means. But come back to visit with your friend, the Dungeon Tutor. Hello friends, I am the Dungeon Tutor. Welcome! Today we are on day 7 of RPGaDay, and this is 2025. The topic is Journey. Possibly one of the more befitting topics for role-playing games. Many role-playing games involve journeying one way, shape, or form. The problem is, a lot of those journeys, especially overland journeys to get from a place to someplace else that you need to be, oftentimes has a lot of just in between. Perhaps a couple of random encounters based on the terrain you're passing through. Maybe even something that the game master wants to bedevil you with. And that's kind of unfortunate. Journeys can often be a bridge between more exciting things. The safer place that you left behind to the destination that you're going to, even if it's not that safe. And the journey in between is an inconvenience. Something that would be, for some people, better off skipped entirely. That's why they make teleports. But also vehicles that forestall encounters along the way. There are a variety of ways to skip journeys and make them something less tedious. But here's the thing, if a journey is worth experiencing at all, and I'm not saying that every trip between two places has to be packed with action. In fact, I would dare say that outside of a couple of minor encounters that you don't dwell on very much, if an encounter genuinely doesn't have anything of any great import that the game master wants to convey, it is safe to, for the most part, just skip it. Just say, okay, along the way, this happens. A couple of goblins try to rob you. That is a mistake on their part because you are far too powerful. Or you see a group of wolves. The wolves look at you, size you up, and decide you're humans. They don't really need to attack you. They can go and actually look for game that they do want. Things like that help to remind people that they're in a real world and that a journey from point A to point B, while if you were a character living through it, would involve some certain things that would happen or be notable. For instance, that vista that you saw of an incredible rise with the clouds seeming to flow off of the tops of the mountains, just swirling over and pouring into the basin below. That's cool. That's something that the character might remember as an important element of that journey. They might actually be overcome sometimes with the thoughts of, yeah, I remember that was a great time we all had back when life was simpler, or something like that. That usually happens with reveries of that nature. But they don't always have to be idle either. Now, obviously, a journey is a prime place for a side quest, something that crops up that the adventurers might want to look into. Is it ever an important thing? It might be. It might actually be a part of the ongoing story the players didn't anticipate as they were going off on this journey to go from point A to point B. The game master might have other ideas, and that's perfectly fine. That just means the journey is shorter and that the destination came quicker than the players might have been expecting. But that doesn't necessarily fill all of the coffers of what could happen. And honestly, too, there's oftentimes opportunities for self-exploration, for learning more about your fellow players in the group too. And there's a couple of avenues for this. The first one is the interlude, and that's something that comes to my awareness from Savage Worlds, whereon, periodically, there is a lull in the action, oftentimes during a journey. Camping at night, for instance. The players can have an opportunity to talk in character. They can reveal elements of their character that might not otherwise have come out. Therefore, your character's backstory, that's super cool, might actually be appreciated by your fellow players if you take that opportunity to show them how cool your character's backstory is. Otherwise, if it never gets mentioned, what was the point? So that's oftentimes good, and usually in circumstances like that, it's kind of almost a tradition. The game master can give bonuses to the players in one way, shape, or form. Maybe they earn inspiration. Maybe they, I don't know, they get a blessing or a boon of some sort if it's really good. In one of my games, D&D based, it's from a company called GUI Cube, who, just to be forward about it, I wrote for. I've done some work for them. And with GUI Cube's adventures and campaign, all of their works come with what are called GUI reward cards, something to be used in place of inspiration. And they are one-use bonuses that a player can collect as a reward for good roleplay. Good roleplay, hitting a milestone, maybe the group might dice off for who might get a GUI reward. At a really significant climax, maybe everybody gets a GUI reward. Who knows? It's up to you. But those can be awfully nice as a reward that can either stack with advantage or replace it, and players will look for those bonuses, unless they are completely trivial. They are something that is a way of saying, good job, you're doing the right thing, you're going in the right direction. And if you think about a character in a movie, for an example, or a book, if they never bring up that element of their story, that element that shaped the way they are, then we're all forced to just deal with them at face value. And if they have any flaws that come from that background, we have to assume they're a lesser person because we don't know that backstory. We don't know the elements behind that weird quirk or odious personal habit or something like that. No, we're left with, okay, person's a jerk or something like that. Not, they were scarred because their village was burned down before them. They were playing out in the field, and when they returned, orcs had attacked the village. At first, it was just simply the guards of the village fighting against the orcs. The clang of metal, the groan of the injured and the dying, which the children didn't hear. But as they got closer to the village, returning for their supper, they saw columns of smoke. They got close enough to see the village in flames, only a few injured people remaining. And the orcs, having gathered everything they valued, left. Be it slaves, be it food, livestock, weapons, whatever they raided for. And that character is then scarred. That is a major motivating factor. Whatever she took from that, I will make sure that nobody ever suffers that fate again. Perhaps. I will make sure all the orcs pay. Perhaps. They're all perfectly fine and legal. However, the character process that is going to say a lot about their character. But it is a justification for how the player has been playing that character in a way. And something that the players can appreciate. Not every character is going to wear their heart on their sleeve, but if there's any hope for anybody to find out those kind of details, that might be one of them. And honestly, if you know about those details of a character, it makes the character more rich. Do you feel more sympathetic about that character because they are suffering after that and still suffering scars? Yeah, maybe, that's interesting. And that can unlock during the journey, because then now you have two journeys. You have the physical journey of getting from point A to point B, and you have the journey inside the mind and psyche of the character. Exposed for the other players to see, and showing what a good character crafter you are. That you've given this character depth and elements to them that explain how they act in a certain way. Explain why you are exploring this aspect of their character. Because it's a central conceit of the character, perhaps. Or just because it seems to be what is appropriate at the given time. Whatever. The point is, journeys aren't necessarily just going from point A to point B. Sometimes they're about going from vagueness to something that's more concrete. Interludes help things like that. But there's any number of ways too. A good player will drop elements of their character's past into their conversation, their behaviors. If your character, for instance, was in a campaign against an orcish horde, a fairly famous campaign, perhaps you show that by the way that your character keeps watch. Putting up defenses, snares, break legs, small pits, any number of things to make noise, to warn when somebody's creeping in the trees. And if anybody had known that particular campaign was absolutely brutal because the orcs ruthlessly exploited their advantages of dark vision, you know, for instance, this character has been scarred by being attacked by people they couldn't see coming at night, and now sets all these precautions up. Maybe to the point of appearing to be folly, but they are showing what their past was through their actions today. And that's just an example. That's a single example. It's a fairly easy one. But these are things that if you're thinking about your character, if you're making your character real on their ongoing journey, this is something that's certainly possible. And in many cases, good. Now, another thing, too, that is useful is making a journey that is more holistic. If the party has been going through combat after combat after combat, they're worn down, they're tired, they've had their long rest and everything, but they've been just through a miserable slog of combats and desperate actions, and it would wear on anybody. Like trauma. It's almost to that point. And the players, you know, they're gassed a little bit, you know? There's only so long you can keep at that height where survival is always at stake and everything is always so important as when you are completely surrounded in something like a dungeon that is dangerous and deadly. Then after that, you know, what do we do in our lives? We take vacations. We get some days off. Do adventurers? Yeah, technically, whenever you want if you're self-employed. So, journeys can oftentimes be a place where you rest on your feet, as it were. You're going from point A to point B, not to fight monsters. You trust the roads are safe, maybe? Or maybe you're hiking, and not in a way where you're looking for the next thing to kill. That's a different approach, and that sometimes may help your characters to make sense of the world again, to get past this imminently oppressive circumstance they found themselves in. Just a possibility. So, those are some ideas I had about journeys and their experience in role-playing games, certainly. I was very tempted to come in on a journey song, but I would have to sing it, and that would be punishing you. I am not a singer. But I am happy to have you, so thank you for joining me. I hope you got something out of this, I really do. And I hope that you liked me enough to want to come back. If so, you know how to do it, the like, the subscribe, and all that, if you haven't done that yet. Cool. But I just really hope to see you again. And to know that you've been here, and if you would be so kind, leave a comment. You know, some great journey that your character took and what it was. Were you on the demi-realm of banana pudding and you journeyed all the way across to Fudge Top Mountain? I don't know. Maybe. That would be cool. I'd love to hear about that in a story. So, by all means, leave something in the comments. I'd love to see it. But I do appreciate you being here, and I can't wait to see you again. And when we do, between that magical time and now, I hope that you, yes, you, get a chance to roll some dice, to play some games, have some fun, but stay safe out there, friends. Until that next time, farewell.